Hello and welcome. My name is David Mann and I'm the Artistic Director of Voce Chamber Singers. Thank you for tuning in to this virtual choir broadcast. During the live stream, we will be sharing a digital world premiere of Alchemy by Karen Thomas. Stay tuned after Alchemy for in-person performances of choral classics, as well as a recorded Q&A with composer Karen Thomas. I am so pleased to present this new work, even during the global pandemic. Commissioning new music is a central part of Voce's mission, and we look forward to presenting a live performance of Alchemy in the future. My thanks to the entire Voce board, Chorus America, Classical Movements, and the New Music Program. Our talented singers who worked diligently to learn the piece, and our fabulous pianist, CJ Cabin. Next month, make sure to tune in on May 15th to hear Together in Song, a musical offering that will coincide with an online auction. Featured items include gift cards from local businesses, including the Merrifield Garden Center and Nothing Bundt Cakes. The online auction will also feature handmade treasures from creative singers and special gift baskets like tea time and birthday box. You can preview the auction at tinyurl.com/voceauction. Bidding will open from May 8th to May 22nd. Finally, thank you to our online audience members who have donated to our organization during the past year. Without the revenue of ticket sales or traditional fundraising, we are relying on your donations more than ever. Please consider giving something to sustain our organization for the future. No amount is too small to make a difference. Thank you for watching and enjoy the performance.
Hello, this is Karen Thomas. I'm delighted to be here with you virtually and really looking forward to hearing the premiere of Alchemy. Before I say anything about the piece, I want to really thank the singers and David for all the work that they've put into learning this piece remotely during the pandemic. It's a very difficult time for choruses to rehearse everybody on their own and put together virtual choir pieces, so I really appreciate all the hard work to make this happen. Alchemy is written on a text by Sarah Teasdale, who is one of my favorite poets to set music to. Her words are just so lyrical and musical, even by themselves. They're lovely to work with. And the reason I chose this particular poem is I thought it just spoke so well to the moment that we are in now and have been in for the last year. Of being in a state of wanting things to change into something better. And the text, I think, has a lot of hopefulness about it, of taking this moment of difficulty or pain or sadness and changing it into something very alive and wonderful. And so it looks forward to the time when, as choirs, we could be back together singing in person and performing for you in person. So for me, this is a very hopeful message, but it also acknowledges the difficult time that we've been in for the past year. So I really hope you enjoy the piece. I am so looking forward to hearing it. So sit back and enjoy the beautiful sounds of the Voce Chamber Singers.
I lift my heart as free. being a part of Virtual Voce has been really special for me. I'm a new mom, and it's been a really weird time to be a new mom during quarantine. And so just having something that's just for me and that's tapping into a part of myself that I haven't really used in a while, meeting with all these singers and sharing our videos, it's been really special and a really, really big comfort to me.
Yeah, now you can't lie about it.
We had a diverse range of ages, so that very much helped.
Tony, we got 9. So we
Are you sure?
6, right? Or they're 15. Give us a little credit here.
We got 7 out of 15, yes.
There's a large variety in the setup that we use. Some of us are using our phones, some of us are using laptops, some of us are using just different constructs altogether, right? But it's about making it work, and as long as we make it work, then we make it stick. And I think that's one of the things that we found in common.
And it's just so amazing to me, like how all these individual recordings put together sounds like you're actually listening to a choir. Anyways, so it's slow going, but I think the end result will be really nice.
This is a good party garage song.
Everybody, it's great to see you all. And as you know, I'm Karen Thomas. And first of all, I'm just delighted that you co-commissioned this piece and really excited to hear you sing it. So I kind of wear two hats. One is as a composer and the other is as a conductor. And I conduct the Seattle Pro Musica, which will be having its 50th anniversary in a couple of years. So that keeps me really busy. That's a full-time job. I also have a part-time church job, and have been composing and conducting conducting since undergrad, and composing since I was probably 10. So I've been at it for a while. And as a composer, I mostly focus on choral music, not exclusively. I have a lot of chamber music as well, and a couple bigger pieces, and even a one-act opera. But I do a lot of choral music because that's the world that I live in most of the time, and I love it. And it just choral music speaks to me in a way that few other things do. So it's where I like to live as a composer as well as a conductor. And let's see what else. I'm on the board of Chorus America, which is partly how this commission came about, because it's the commission benefits the programs of Chorus America, which is an organization I feel passionately about, and I'm assuming you're probably members as well. But it's just a I don't know how many of you know much about it. It is a fantastic organization, and for choirs like yours and mine, that are community-based ensembles. It's the national organization that just gives us all the information we need about so many things. So I was happy to donate a commission to them, and I'm excited to hear groups premiering it this year. It's kind of funny because all this began before the pandemic, of course, and so once that hit, as you know, everything shifts, especially in the world of choral music. Everything becomes, you have to come up with completely different ways of doing things. So when I set out to write the piece, I actually I took into account a couple things. One was that the choruses that we're co-commissioning might be doing it as a virtual choir piece. Some groups might choose to just delay it, but it was very likely that a lot of groups would do it as a virtual choir piece. And so being intimately familiar with how difficult it is to do virtual choir, and how different it is than singing together in person, I wanted to write a piece that would lend itself well to being done as a virtual choir piece, without being overly simple, right? I mean, I've heard a number of pieces that are written specifically for virtual choir that tend to be extremely short, extremely simple, repetitive, etc. And I didn't want to write something that was only going to fit that mold. I wanted a piece that could be done in in-person concert setting and feel fulfilling, but would also be successful in a virtual setting. It would not be overly intricate rhythmically, because that's one of the most difficult things to pull together in virtual choir. So I was looking at how to craft it in that way. The other thing I wanted was to choose poetry and then write the piece, recognizing the time that we're in, not necessarily needing to say something very specific about the pandemic, but to have a hopeful feeling about it, to have a sense that we're almost in kind of a holding pattern in some ways, and transitioning into something that will be more akin to what we have enjoyed in the past as choir. And so this particular text, the Sarah Teasdale Alchemy text, really spoke to me in that way, that it's very much a transitional text about taking something that is a disadvantage or a sadness or an adversity, and turning it into the positive. And so that's why I decided to work with this text. So that was my inspiration and my plan when I was setting out to write this piece. And hopefully we achieved those ends. But you tell me after you sing it if it feels like it's getting there.
Hi, my name is Kim. My question is about when you're in your creative process and writing and you come to a roadblock, how do you overcome that and kind of keep working forward when you kind of get to that stopping point?
That happens all the time for me, like all the time. I can't even think of a piece I ever wrote in which I didn't at some point just feel like, God, I know I need 8 measures here, and they're not coming, and I don't like what I'm writing. So a lot of things. I mean, usually I will, I'll try to approach it in different ways, and I'll leave it alone. That's a big help. If things are not sounding like if it's not achieving what I need it to in the context of the piece at a certain point, I'll work it for a while, and then sometimes I just have to go away and let it sit for a week or a couple days or whatever, and get some I don't know, get some distance and some perspective, but also just leave time for the brain and the psyche to I don't want to say open up to anything else, anything and everything else, and then eventually it'll work its way out. But yeah, there's always like some place in a piece where I feel like I had to work too hard. You know what I mean? I had to work too hard to achieve the thing that once it's done and somebody hears it, it's like, if anybody knew how hard I worked on these 4 bars here, they'd be like, what's your problem?
Were there any moments like that in Alchemy that you can remember, or anything about the process for this piece that was special?
Let's see. Places where I had to, sometimes the places like that I would say might give me trouble is if I have a piece with a particular structure and I know that it's begun with this, it's got something of this in the middle, it's ending with this. And like in the case of Alchemy, at the beginning, the ending are very similar, right? It comes back to that A section. And sometimes, just getting those few bars where I'm like, we lead back to the A section, might feel like, I have to work this a bit to feel like it flows and it's organic and it belongs to the piece and it's not slapped on. Mm-hmm. So that, that's page
sort of
7.
Piano interlude, right?
Little piano interlude on page 7, just to, make sure that it feels like it connects the two, it leads somewhere, it's of a piece with the entire work. Things like that are places that, might sometimes give me some fits. There were, I remember in writing it, there was one place, the kind of the thematic section at the bottom of page 3 that's like starts around measure 28 and then goes into the lift up a bit. I like my initial idea for that was more it was a similar idea, but it was faster and rhythmically more intricate. And after working on that for a bit, I thought, this is not that doing it this way is not going to lend itself to great success in the virtual choir recording world. So I kind of went back and simplified a little bit so that it would, hopefully be more successful and not frustrating in trying to record it.
I've enjoyed the sort of unique virtual format. I can tell that informed it. And I think sometimes when you have parameters to sort of control your process to work within, that can lead to a different product. And that's what I think of when I look at this piece. Are there any other questions that you all have that you're thinking of? Thanks, Kim, for that.
Yeah.
Joan.
Do you think that you might create a different version of this then for in-person choir after everything's all said and done and go back and make a more intricate version? Or do you think this is it and you just do something different?
Yeah, interesting question. I had not considered changing it at all. I mean, I think the piece as written works as it is. So I don't, having finished it, I don't have a concept of it that it should be different, that it should be more rhythmically challenging or anything like that. I think this piece is this piece. I'm very satisfied with it.
I didn't want to suggest that it wasn't perfect the way it is, but it's just from you speaking about how you made conscious changes from your intention. I thought maybe you had another version running in your head.
No, I think really all I had were, here's some thematic ideas or textural ideas, and I modified them to a place where I thought they would they would work well in this context, but it didn't feel like a compromise, rather just, let's look at, like David said, looking at the parameters that we have. How do we, and that's what I would do. I do that with any piece that I'm writing. If I'm writing for a particular group or occasion or whatever, I'm always going to look at, what are those parameters, and the piece should work within those parameters. So no, I don't feel like there's a compromise here. It's just a different choice. Yeah.
I think it must be interesting being the conductor and the composer, because as you're probably performing a lot of your own pieces, you can maybe make changes in the moment and things like that and be flexible. So that must be interesting too. I saw Elizabeth had her hand up next. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, so I have noticed in this piece that there's just a ton of like word painting going on. And I was wondering if that is kind of a typical way for you to go about composing, like basing it around that kind of, literal interpretation of the words. Or if that's like, do you start with like a couple key, moments, like the lifeless whine of grief, like that, like whole dissonant chord there. Like, are there kind of key moments like that you build off of?
So yeah, if I'm writing music with text, choral music or vocal music, it will be very text driven. That becomes the starting place for the piece, because whatever the poem or the text is expressing, I feel that the music I write needs to also express that same general outlook or feeling or affect. So sometimes word painting can be a little maybe more specific, but more often it would be what's the larger, if you think in Baroque terms, what's the affect of this piece, or if it's a larger piece, these sections of the piece, and having the music express that and bring something to the text, right? So I always want to make sure when I'm writing that I'm doing something that will somehow enhance the text, certainly not be detrimental to it, be in sync with it. So yeah, there are places that are maybe kind of, obvious places, like, lifts up is a rising interval, right? It would seem really counterintuitive and strange to me to write the opposite. I think if I wrote the opposite, I would, without even thinking about it, I'd be like, what am I doing? That's not right. So yeah, I think there is some there in any of my pieces with text. There probably is some more specific word painting, but the bigger picture is what's the overall expression of the piece.
I think that really comes across. There's so much, just the contour of everything is up and then starting low again and lifting up. It's kind of like this updraft of music, just spinning and spinning. It's really light and optimistic. And
good. That's what I intended. So I'm glad. It's always good for a composer to hear from someone who is on the receiving end of what's written on the score, that they think and feel the same thing that I hoped I put down on paper. So yeah, that's great.
It's not a dirge. It's the opposite of that. Yeah.
Good.
Good. David, we have a couple of composers in here. They're both named David and David. So David Caleb, I think you were next. Did you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to know, how has computer composition software changed how you compose, or has it?
Okay. The very first piece that I wrote when I started using notation software, and this is now like 30 years ago, right? Was extremely repetitive because it's so easy to copy and paste, right? And and it wasn't that I meant to, but it was, you know, it was a big piece, and it was for a large brass ensemble, and you know, just the beauty of copy and paste and not having to write it out over again with slight variations. Yeah, I think I was like a kid in a candy store, and then afterwards I was like, okay, yeah, that was too much. So I think since then it doesn't affect much, because I still, when I'm composing a piece, I still write it the old-fashioned way with pencil and score paper, and then I put it in the computer, and that I just find that works better for me, because I'm not thinking about anything having to do with computer notation technique, or, you know, anything like that, or getting my software to do anything when I'm actually creating the piece. So I'm pretty compartmentalized in terms of using notation software. It's more like, you know, by the time I get to that point, I'm the editor of the piece.
David, do you approve of that answer? I am seeing lots of nods and thumbs up.
Oh yeah, I approve of the answer. Do you compose at the piano?
Somewhat, not entirely. Kind of depends on what I'm writing. So I do, you know, a lot of it just at a desk. I play some things. If I'm writing a piano part, then I'm definitely playing it because I want it to fit. You know, if I'm writing for classical guitar, I'm playing it because I play guitar, so I'm playing it so that it, you know, I know how it fits. Choral stuff is a little bit more just in my head, so it kind of depends. Yeah.
Beyond voice and conducting, what's your primary instrument?
I started out as a guitarist, and then I actually stopped many years ago because I just didn't have time to keep it up, and I was, you know, conducting and composing, and I've actually started playing again during quarantine because I can't make music live with choirs and other people, and so I just picked it up again as a way to be making music by myself. So yeah, I had to be kind of a beginner for a while, which is humbling. but it's been enjoyable, just, you know, for on a personal level.
Yeah, David, I think I interrupted you. Did you have a follow-up as well? No, you're good. Okay, Allison was next. Go ahead, Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm not a composer. I just really wanted to share with you that I was one of the singers who was lucky enough to be singing in person last night. And of course, we have so few, if any, opportunities to do that now. It's really an overpowering experience. And also to be rehearsing your piece and knowing that we were the first people ever to sing it was just such an extraordinarily emotional experience for me. And when we got to end on that fabulous final chord, um, especially as a first soprano, with singing with other sopranos on that glorious final note, I just wanted to let you know what an amazingly wonderful experience that was for me. And thank you. And also thank David for making that happen.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm delighted that your first sing through of the piece was able to be in person, because that is obviously such a completely different experience than doing the Zoom thing. You know, if you do what I'm doing, which is you play a recording, or in this case a MIDI file, and people sing along with that, and there is nothing more awful than singing along with a MIDI file, but you know, it's kind of what we have right now. So that's great. I'm so glad you got to do it live. That sounds exhilarating. I mean, it's been a year for me since any of my choirs could do anything live. So boy, I'm looking forward to the day when we can start that again.
When you are hired to write a piece for a particular choral group, do you try to get information about that choral group's strengths in terms of their sound, or is it more? What's your process in working with a choral group? Do they pick a text and then you go from there, or how have you done it?
For any group that I'm commissioned to write for, I definitely want to know their sound, their repertoire before I write. So in the case of this piece, because it was a co-commission, I went to everybody's website and just took a look at, what's your past repertoire looking like, listen to whatever recordings people had up, get all the information I can so that I know who I'm writing for and can tailor that somewhat. In the case of this particular one, I also had to kind of tailor it to this virtual choir world. So that's another layer. But I always do, pay attention to who I'm writing for. In terms of the specifics of a commission, it really depends on the particular commission and the people who are commissioning. Sometimes they have very specific desires for a text or a type of text, and other times it's quite wide open. This particular commission was very wide open in terms of what the text would be. And that's often the way with a co-commission, because it's hard for all the commissioning groups to, so ahead of time agree that they want a certain type of text. So it really depends, and I usually have it, just whatever stipulations there are written into the agreement ahead of time. So if a group needs to have a secular text or needs a sacred text, they want it to be, a certain length. All that is known up front. And like I had one commission which was very specific about text, and they said, it was for a church, and they said, we have 3 options, all from the book of John. Here they are. You can choose one of these 3. And that was like maybe my least favorite approach. It's a little hand-tied, like, oh, okay. But yeah, it really does. It completely depend on what the commissioning group wants. I find, because I also am involved in commissioning composers. And so I find, my preference as a person who commissions is to talk with the composer and, for the most part, give them like a lot of free rein about text. And if there are any stipulations that we know in advance, that we'll put those up front, but usually I like it to be very open-ended and just have a conversation that says, here's my choir, here's the kind of things they like, here are the kind of things they are not as crazy about, just so they get an idea of us, but then can spin off, their own interests and not feel not feel, put into a little box of, you have to use one of these 3 texts or something like that. I like to encourage their creativity, and yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing about your process as a creator. I'm wondering, also at the end, how do you know when you're done? Are you like a tinkerer? Are you editing? Sorry if this is this has a really simple answer, but it's something I've always wondered.
Yeah. I do go back and usually what I do is when I think I'm done, I get it all in the computer and it's notated and I'm pretty sure it's finished. I will leave it alone for a few days. And then I'll go back and, look at it again and oftentimes I will think, I wrote 2 measures here and it really needs 4, right? It feels truncated. So I will go back and change that, or vice versa. This bit here seems overly long and it feels like the piece got stalled a little bit and I need to tighten it up. Usually things like that, you know, stepping away from it and getting out of the weeds and then coming back. There are sometimes things that I see that need some adjustment. Yeah. But I don't let that go on for too long. Otherwise I'd miss my deadlines.
You know, I'm curious, with everything that's happened since the pandemic began, I think there's been more of a focus with commissioning composers and choosing repertoire. Like the repertoire you mentioned is from a group that might have been historically excluded from the canon and things like that. I'm just curious your thoughts on, you know, advocacy for those issues and what our responsibility is when we can go back to rehearsal. How do we move forward without just going back to the way things have always been?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I and maybe because I'm a composer myself, but I've always been interested in new music and in commissioning composers. So that's been part of Seattle Pro Musica's repertoire for many years. For a number of years, I had a real focus on composers that were in the Northwest area, just because, you know, East Coast composers get a lot of recognition on the East Coast. And so I wanted to, you know, make sure that we help to, you know, hold up people who were more local. I've always been a champion of women composers because it's been a struggle for women to be recognized. And more recently, I've been more concerned with really amplifying voices of people of color, because that's, you know, they've been so marginalized for so many years, and it's so much easier now than it was 20 years ago to find composers who are writing interesting music, because everybody has a website. And, you know, it used to be that if you were looking for new music, you relied a lot on publishers, and a lot of what gets published is frankly not very interesting. And I was always disappointed when I'd get these big stacks of music from publishing houses, and I would I just have to recycle most of it because it wasn't very good. And that's still sometimes the case, but there's so much that's easily findable on the web. And I mean, it does take some searching and unearthing and whatnot, but there are just some really good resources now. Marcus Garrett's resource of Black composers is one of them, and the Composer Diversity Database, you probably know about this, David, is fantastic. You know, because you can search with all kinds of parameters for composers in that database. So you can go in and just enter, you know, choral music, and any composer who's listed themselves as a choral composer, you will find hundreds of names. And, you know, if you want to narrow it down further, if you want a BIPOC composer, you can do. If you want a LGBTQ, you know, if those are the voices you want to amplify, there's so many ways to easily connect with and find new music by different people. And then there you are on the website where they've probably got a perusal score and maybe a recording. And so it becomes so much quicker to find so much more than we could have decades ago. There's a treasure trove of music out there that I'm just really enjoying getting to know and look through. It's time consuming. I mean, like it always is. To look for new music is time consuming, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoy it too. I think it keeps things fresh and interesting. And if you didn't enjoy that, then, you know, then you're in the wrong profession, I guess. Finding new music is what
Agreed.
conductors do. So I guess maybe a final way to sort of wrap things up is to ask you, you know, we're getting so much out of this interaction with you, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time, not only to just tell us about the piece, but to just establish a relationship with us and feel more connected to what's going on with the performance. That really feels special and unique, this opportunity. Is there anything when you're writing a piece of music that you want the audience or the performers to take away when you reflect on a process that, you know, wasn't where your hands were tied, where you really felt it clicked? You know, what are the aspects of those interactions that you hope to get out of this event, what we're doing?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think for me, I mean, both as a composer and as a conductor, and thinking about audiences and performers, everything is about relationship and connection, and having an impact of some sort. And every piece is different, and it will have a different kind of impact or have something different to say. But the important thing is that it makes some kind of connection, that it somehow resonates with the people who perform it and hear it, and that there's a you know, a communication. That's the bottom line for me, is, you know, communicating something, connecting with people, starting a relationship, even if it's only you know, a 5-minute piece, and you had a relationship with the composer because you heard their piece in a concert and it was interesting and it moved you, but it's still, you know, there's still something happening there. So that's really what I look for. Nothing more specific than that, but just kind of that big picture of connecting people, you know, just the humanity of working with singers, singing for audiences. Yeah, that's what makes all of everything I do as a musician worthwhile to me. And that's what makes COVID so difficult, is because, you know, we're doing it this way. Although, you know, and the upside is, nobody knew about Zoom a year ago, and here we are, and we can, you know, have Zoom meetings with composers from anywhere in the world. And I hope, and I think, you know, going forward, when we're doing in-person concerts again, it'll still be just so easy to say, you know, on a certain night, choir, get on Zoom. We're meeting with composer X from, you know, who's in Taiwan, and we're gonna, you know, have a chat. This is just so great, because you would never have done that before. You know, you would never have thought to do it. So here we are.